The following stories are from members of Hanmaum Church in South Korea. They aired on a Korean Christian TV network called C Channel and were dubbed in English.
Hello, I'm Yong-Geun Lim from Hanmaum Church in Chuncheon. Since my childhood, I lived to be recognized by the people I saw around me. I didn't believe in a God I couldn't see, but through a real, living witness of the resurrection, I came to believe in the risen Jesus, and, freed from the burden of people's eyes, I live now only for Jesus. I would like to share my testimony today. I was a very proud person. I was always concerned with people's thoughts and attitudes towards me, and I wanted to be recognized and not ignored by them. Because of this, my school life was really tough. I was so loud and mischievous that even before class began, my teachers would say, "Yong-Geun Lim, leave the class." And I'd boldly answer, "Why do I have to leave?" I did not want to be shamed in front of my friends. Because I wanted to be recognized, I bullied my friends a lot. I thought that if I bullied them first, they would not look down on me. One day, I threw a sharp pen at a friend who was sitting in front of me. The pen caught in my friend's head, and he started bleeding. I was shocked and sorry, but I couldn't show that I was flustered. I didn't want to be looked down on. At home, I was a quiet and kind son, but outside I was a completely different person. Once, I was drinking with my friends as usual. It was late at night, and as I was in high spirits, I went around and broke all the side mirrors of the cars in an apartment block. I spent that night in a police station for the first time in my life. I felt more sorry towards my mom than about the damage that I caused. I wasn't normally that kind of person, but I was so desperate to get recognition from my friends. Seeing my mom disappointed in me broke my heart. Because I wanted to be recognized and not looked down on, I lost myself and continued to live that way. As my life continued to be fraught with problems, my parents decided to send me and my younger brother to study at a missionary's place in Malaysia. I had gone to church with my mother, but I had never had any interest in it. But now that I was staying in the house of a pastor, I had no choice but to attend every service. It could have been a very boring life, but the pastor treated us very kindly with love. I was so grateful. Because I wanted to please the pastor, I started taking my church life more seriously. One day, the pastor complimented my brother, saying that he was sociable and bright, and that he prayed diligently. But to me, he said that he would have to keep watching me. From that day on, I worked really hard at anything related to church work in order to be recognized by him. After some time had passed, he complimented me and even said that I was very sincere. Receiving recognition felt so good that doing church work and serving the pastor became joyful, and whenever we went to the jungle with a missions team, I would serve with my life on the line. Some church deacons would see me serving and tell me I was doing well in my faith, and I would work even harder with the happiness I got from their compliments. But when life seemed great, something happened and the pastor had to return to Korea. Without the pastor to see and acknowledge me, my church life and faith walk gradually started to crumble. The purpose for my faith was gone, and I started to drink with my younger church friends and do whatever I wanted to do. They had only seen me as faithful, but as my old habits came back out, they found it interesting and liked it. I loved it because they recognized me for it. I did feel guilty towards God and my pastor, but the satisfaction of being popular among my friends was even greater. But I still had to maintain my image at church, so I steadily continued on in my church life. That was how I started to live a double life between God and the world. At church, I participated in the praise team, and even joined a praise mission team that traveled to different countries. The love for God would overwhelm me during these missions, but since I couldn't see Him, God was not real to me at all. And as I didn't see Him acknowledging me, being recognized by this visible world, worldly pride, was more important. For the holidays, I went to Korea, and my mom invited me and my brother to come to Hanmaum Church in Chuncheon. When I arrived, I ended up talking with one of the church members. He asked me, "How are we able to believe that God is alive?" As I'd only thought about God in vague ways, I said without confidence, "Through the Word, and because He answers prayers? When He shows us miracles, when we can hear His voice." But then he responded with an unexpected phrase. He said that the proof to believe that God exists is the resurrection of Jesus. He said that the Jesus who came, died, and rose from the dead, as prophesied in the Bible given to us by God, was God. Then he told me that the Jesus that had risen was alive even now. This Jesus, through his resurrection, had given a believable proof to all people, and not believing in the risen Jesus as Lord was the fundamental sin. Until now, I'd only heard the resurrection message during Easter, and, only thinking about the love shown on the cross, God had been a vague existence for me. I thought to myself, if Jesus had only died on the cross, he couldn't possibly be God. Only through his resurrection is he proven to be God. If God was alive, then not believing in him really was the fundamental sin, and I could agree with this truth in the depths of my heart. I had only thought of God vaguely before in my heart, but I was beginning to know him more clearly. At the end of the holidays, I returned to Malaysia. With the thought of God being alive, I tried to live a holy life for the first few weeks. But soon, I wanted to be approved by the people around me again, and I fell into the world's pleasures once more. Because I was stuck living with one foot in God and the other in the world, these days made my heart heavy and miserable. When God's existence had only been a vague idea to me, I'd felt carefree about living the way I wanted to, since I couldn't see him anyway. But finding out the proof of the resurrection made me realize that he was real regardless of what I saw. I did learn about God this way, but since I still couldn't see him before my eyes, what I liked better were the pleasures of the world and maintaining my image in front of others. More than anything else, I feared that if I firmly held on to my faith, my image and relationships with people would all collapse. Eventually, I no longer wanted to believe in Jesus. I thought that if I had to suffer this much with the effort of trying to believe in something I couldn't even see, it would be better to worry about what I could see and live unburdened instead. After graduation, I came back to Korea. The day after I arrived, my parents told me to come with them to their small church. Listening to their invitation to worship annoyed and bothered me, but I decided I would go just for a few months and join the small church. When I first went, the other members gave me such a warm welcome and seemed like good people. The worship was also not burdensome, so I didn't feel bad about it. I heard that a leukemia patient and a cancer patient were in the small church. The brother with leukemia was bald, but otherwise he didn't look like a patient at all. That was because he smiled a lot and looked joyful and healthy. The sister with cancer had long, flowing hair, laughed a lot, talked a lot, and looked healthy. She did not look like a cancer patient at all. Because of this, I assumed that they were not at serious stages of their illnesses. I attended the small church meetings and church worship services for 3 months, but my heart didn't change. I still could not believe in the resurrection. The pastor would constantly say that the resurrection was historically recorded and was in the encyclopedia as a historical fact, but I didn't think history was always completely true. I believe that General Sun Shin Lee and King Sejong the Great had existed, but as their tales are passed down, the stories could have been adapted, embellished, and changed, depending on who was recording it. So I couldn't believe in all of it. I thought that there could be many lies within it. I continued attending church. They said plainly that everyone could be changed to the resurrection, but I wasn't changing. I thought, if the resurrection was God's victory, shouldn't 100% of people be changed, not 99.9%? Seeing my lack of change, I told myself that the resurrection wasn't everything. I thought that there must be something more, and I expected an experience, miracle, voice, or an incredible blessing that could change my life completely. And if there really was nothing but the resurrection, I prayed that, since I couldn't believe only through the Word, God would show me a witness of the resurrection, like the 12 disciples or Paul, or for him to show me the resurrection for real, not just through books. I also tended to think thoughts like, what would it be like if I changed and shared the gospel with my friends? What kind of questions would they ask me, and what kind of counter-arguments would they make? I would also think about other church members like, didn't his brother believe in God because he wasn't studious? Would he have believed if he was smarter? Or, didn't that guy believe in God only because he fell sick and needed something to hold on to? I kept thinking that only weak people or people with problems in their lives believed in God, so I had no confidence in him. The logic in these thoughts seemed kind of forced, but it seemed to make a lot of sense, too. It was around then that the brother in our small church with leukemia relapsed. Spending the last 3 months with him in the small church, I had thought his illness had not been very serious. I thought he'd come to believe in God because of his illness and that he was getting better. I'd assumed he'd been living his church life happily since he was getting better. But when I heard the news that his leukemia had relapsed and that he only had 1 to 3 months to live, I realized that his condition was very serious. The odd thing was that despite the relapse, that brother was the same as he had been before. He had the same joy, shared the same gospel, and continued to declare that Jesus was his Lord. How can he be so joyful, I thought? If I was him and I believed in Jesus because of my illness, I would have thought that it wouldn't relapse, and if it did, I would be disappointed and feel betrayed. So why? Has he been a Christian for a long time? Did he always have good faith? No, he hadn't. This brother didn't know the Bible well, and had only believed in Jesus for over a year. He used to not even know who the prophet Jonah was. But even though he was in pain and was standing before death, he shared the gospel with joy about the resurrection and proclaimed Jesus as Lord. He did not fear death. Oh, there can only be one possible reason for this. He believes that there is something eternal after death. It really is because of the resurrection. The resurrection was real all along. Jesus really did rise from the dead. And in this way, my heart began to be moved. Before my very eyes was someone who was just like the martyred disciples and Paul. Someone who did not fear death. Someone who testified to the resurrection while even standing in the face of death. This was not a story, a media report, an embellished tale, or an altered account. This was really happening before my eyes. It was someone I knew, and he was showing the same faith as the disciples in the Bible. Amen. The resurrection is real. There's no way this brother could be like this otherwise. This thought began to take over my heart. Then, the Bible passage that I had heard so many times during services was plainly revealed to me. Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Although I had kept hearing the word and went to church, I had insisted that the resurrection wasn't enough for me. Like Thomas, I had doubted and demanded that God show me something actual before my eyes, and for him to apply direct changes to my life. Then Jesus showed me, who was like Thomas, a brother who did not fear death. Jesus was telling me, see the resurrection, here it is for real, experience it for yourself. Stop doubting and believe. I no longer had time to hesitate or doubt. Or rather, I had no need to. I had seen it with my own eyes. The resurrection truly is everything. Jesus is God because he rose from the dead. The Almighty really did come down to this earth before ascending to heaven. And he didn't just come down, but he proved that he is God through the resurrection. God is real. The existence of the Almighty God became confirmed to me, and I couldn't help but fall down and repent immediately. If someone in the world had sacrificed everything or died for me, I could live my whole life for that person. Yet the real God, who loved me so much, had come directly to this earth and conquered all suffering and risen again to give me believable proof to be my Lord, and all that when I was still his enemy. But even then I had insisted, "Show me." Not through vague words and not through historical books that can be fabricated, but show yourself directly to me. If not, change my life. If you loved me, would you want me to go to hell? If this is all you can do, I can never believe in an invisible God. I saw how evil I was when I said I wanted to live my life following the world, and the people that I could see with my eyes. I thought of how I had been all that time, and I was so ashamed that I thought I was going insane. I was so much like the devil. As I'd read the Bible, I'd thought that the devil was an alien concept, but it was me the whole time. There was no excuse. I was Thomas, who had to touch Jesus to believe, even when Jesus was standing right before his eyes. With a truly grieved and repentant heart, I repented of the sin of not believing in Jesus. Amen. All this time, God had been there listening to my prayers. He had kindly shown me a witness of the resurrection when I had been absolutely faithless and insisted that I wouldn't believe until I saw with my own eyes. I felt like all my heart's hardships and misery were being comforted. It was then when I truly confessed, like Thomas, that Jesus is my Lord and my God. Amen. All this time, I had revolved my life around people's attitudes towards me and maintaining my public image. When the resurrection was confirmed to me, I saw that I already possessed everything and that I was a royal priest sent from heaven. Things like people's perceptions about me were no longer important. Only the heart of the truly existent Almighty One was what mattered. In the past, I was afraid of people's perceptions about me, so I couldn't even imagine sharing the gospel. But since the invisible God has become real to me through the resurrection, I am no longer afraid. As I am certain that he is always with me, I now live while sharing the gospel, regardless of what people might think of me. I knew that the church community was supposed to be a family, but, as I hadn't believed in Jesus, I didn't really consider them as such. But now that the risen Jesus is my living God and my Lord, I am able to say Amen naturally and with joy to Jesus' words that we are all one body in the gospel. Since our small church was no longer just a group of church members but one family, it was natural that we fought the illness alongside our brother together and served him together. When I didn't believe, I thought that it was so admirable when the people in my small church wrote, "Jesus is my Lord" at the end of their testimonies, but I could never do it myself. It was because I was living as my own Lord, and I didn't want to lie before God. But now I can say it as an obvious truth. Jesus is my Lord. The risen Jesus is my living God. Thank you.
If you'd like to see more stories about how the gospel changed lives, visit us at facebook.com/HMUOnlyJesus or Google us at HMU Only Jesus.